Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly for the Real Sports Talk and Section215.com, the Philadelphia affiliate of Fansided. Make sure you guys go check that out. Now, I'm going to make this video about Nick Foles, and I've just been listening to live sports talk radio, which I do pretty much every day, especially early in the week, because I want to get the response from people based off of what's happened in the games over the weekend. And I hear a lot of people still continuing on 97.5 The Fanatic, which is what I usually listen to a little bit of WIP here and there. I hear a lot of people trying to discredit Nick Foles at this point, and I don't get it. And I know I get the side that, and I'm going to get into all the different sides that I get, but the first side that I get is I understand people saying that we're overreacting too much to one game, but those same people were the ones that overreacted quite a bit to when Nick Foles performed extremely poorly against the Cowboys. So I think that I understand that side, but look at Nick Foles' numbers for 2013. He has 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and even if you take out the 7 touchdown performance, he still had 0 interceptions. He still had 6 touchdowns. He has a 62.7 completion percentage, which is I'm trying to think if Michael Vick's ever reached that in his career. I think he had 1 year in Atlanta. A 75.7 QBR, a 127.4 passer rating. Nick Foles is having a damn good season. I understand he had 1 bad game against the Cowboys, but I mean, you look at Michael Vick, and I like Michael Vick. I've been a Michael Vick fan. You look at what Michael Vick's done this year. He had a bad game against the Chiefs. He came back last week, and I know he's still injured, but he didn't perform well against the Giants. You're allowed to have a bad game here and there. It happens over the course of a season. Unless you're Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, you're going to have some bad games here and there, and both of them have had that this year. I think for the people saying we're overreacting too much to one game, we shouldn't name Nick Foles a starting quarterback. Let's put Michael Vick out of the picture, because I truly believe that Michael Vick will not ever start another game for the Philadelphia Eagles again, barring a Nick Foles injury. Hold your breath, that doesn't happen. But Michael Vick, has the hamstring injury, and I still think it's at least this week he'll be out, and who knows beyond that. And unless Nick Foles goes out and throws 5 interceptions next week, and quite honestly, if he did that, I would still start Nick Foles. But unless he goes out and throws 5 interceptions, you're not going to have a reason to go back to Michael Vick. Nick Foles is 24 years old, and he's shown something. Does that necessarily mean that he's the long-term answer? No, it doesn't, but he's shown you that maybe he can be, and you have to ride it. Michael Vick, you've had 4 years of Michael Vick now, 3.5, 4 seasons of Michael Vick, and if anything, they've gone back as a team. He's gone back as a player from being that MVP candidate in 2010 that took them to the playoffs. Since then, they haven't gone to the playoffs, and Michael Vick has regressed as a player. Now, I understand that's not all his fault. I understand Andy Reid and everything that went on with the front office, bringing in the dream team, all that. I understand that did not help Michael Vick. But he's 33 years old. He's in the last year of his deal. He's not coming back next year. It's a done deal. Write it off. So you gain nothing out of playing Michael Vick anymore. Absolutely 0. You gain something out of Nick Foles because you have one of 3 scenarios. Either he completely sucks and you get a higher draft pick. He's good, but you decide in the draft you want to go in another direction and go after your own quarterback that you think fits your team and gives you a real chance to win the Super Bowl, and you trade Nick Foles by upping his value. This season you get between a 1st and a 3rd round pick depending on how he performs. I think if you can get a 1st round pick, then maybe you probably should not be trading Nick Foles. But regardless, and then the 3rd option is he plays well enough that you decide you're going to bring him back as your starting quarterback next year. And I don't know what's going to happen. I know Nick Foles is 24. I was not on the Nick Foles bandwagon last year, but I have this year because he's been the guy that's performed the best. And people are getting so caught up in Michael Vick versus Nick Foles, not the Philadelphia Eagles. This is the team that we're all supposed to be fans of here. And for those of you who are watching the Real Sports Talk, this video is intended more for Section 215, but you see my point. We're supposed to be focused on what gives the Eagles the best chance to win. And not only individually has Nick Foles performed better, but the team has performed better. The only person offensively who was maybe taking a small step back behind Nick Foles is LaShawn McCoy. The rest of the team, Bryce Brown exploded last week for the first time. Deshaun Jackson, 150 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. Riley Cooper, in 3.5 years of playing with Michael Vick, has never had an 100-yard receiving game. He has 2 with Nick Foles this season, including last week where he had a career day with 3 touchdowns against the Raiders. They got both Brent Selleck and Zach Ertz involved last week. Both caught touchdown passes. Both, I think Selleck had one other. That was Zach Ertz, first of his career. When Chip Kelly came here, we thought we were going to be utilizing the tight ends a lot more, and I think that was one of the early season disappointments. Nick Foles seemed to get them involved, and then even the offensive line. And I know that really probably has very little to do with who's behind them, but the offensive line even played better last week, I thought, and I think that's something that helped them to move the ball more. Now, So I take Michael Vick out of the picture, and if you want to say, let me go down exactly what everyone else says, that he's not a Chip Kelly quarterback. Let's go off of that first. I think that a lot of people feel like you need a running quarterback. I think what Michael Vick proved is it's nice when that you can have some designed runs here and there, but Nick Foles has been better in this offense. Nick Foles has moved the ball better. They've still been able to run the fast pace. They've been able to do a lot of screen passes, a lot of bubble screens, short dump-offs to LaShawn McCoy, whatever the case is. And when Nick Foles has been in the game, he has hit the deep passes to Riley Cooper specifically, to Deshaun Jackson. Michael Vick has had a lot of overthrows on deep passes this year. And again, I'm not just saying this for the hell of it. I'm not thinking of reasons to try and discredit Michael Vick. I'm going off of what I've seen this season so far. And I mean, that it's really been that Michael Vick has not been as good as Nick Foles this year. And if you want to say that Nick Foles is not a Chip Kelly quarterback, I know that we liked seeing Michael Vick is technically a Chip Kelly quarterback. And how did Michael Vick perform in that offense? So maybe we need to reassess what we feel about a Chip Kelly quarterback, because we're like, oh wow, with Michael Vick we really have this chance to do the read option. You know, did we really ever do the read option with Michael Vick effectively? I'm trying to think of any time. I can think of one time where Michael Vick put the ball in LaShawn McCoy's chest and actually pulled it back and kept it himself. Other than that, you knew every time they did the read option, LaShawn McCoy was keeping the ball and he was running it. It really is not a threat, and it was only a matter of time before teams ended up catching on to that anyway. So Nick Foles is not going to be a running quarterback, although I think he's making a conscious effort to show that he can be at least a little mobile. He's a pocket quarterback, and quite honestly, I like that. But if you want to say that he is not the guy, Michael Vick is not the guy then either. And it's time, if you feel like he's not the guy, let's look at some of the guys in the draft. Marcus Mariota. Chip Kelly recruited him. Had Chip Kelly stayed in college, Chip Kelly would be coaching Marcus Mariota right now. Instead, Chip Kelly's in the NFL with the Eagles. Marcus Mariota has torn it up. I mean, if the Eagles could somehow get him, I think maybe he is a good fit for the offense. But again, Nick Foles has 13 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Let's at least see what he can do, because so far he's done pretty damn well in the offense. That's on top of a very good preseason. Although Michael Vick outperformed him in the preseason, Nick Foles did not have a bad preseason. The second name I hear, Johnny Manziel. Let's just throw this name out. He's a head case. I like watching him. He's a really fun player to watch. But he throws into pressure way too much for my liking. He runs, or I think the running could still work in the NFL, but I think the height problem, the height disadvantage, the fact that he is really 5'10", 5'11", at best, I don't like that, and I don't think that... We already have a quarterback that is a left-handed version of Johnny Manziel. And eerily similar to the problems that they had earlier in their career with immaturity. Now, I'm not saying Johnny Manziel is going to run a dogfighting ring or anything like that, but the immaturity... I want to see Johnny Manziel in the NFL, but I don't want to see him on the Eagles. I want to see him succeed, and I'll enjoy watching it, just not with the Eagles. So Johnny Manziel's out, and then Taj Boyd is another name out of Clemson. I like Taj Boyd. I don't love Taj Boyd, and I think you look at you look in the mirror, you see what you go off the interview Taj Boyd, which I'm sure the Eagles will do, off the draft interview, the combine interview, whatever you want to call it, that you do with Taj Boyd. You go off of what he does the remainder of the season, what Nick Foles does, and how he performs in the combine. and you make an assessment, are we really better off starting over at the quarterback position with Taj Boyd? I mean, and you may very well be, because maybe he fits a little bit better because of the running aspect, or are you just in a better situation to keep seeing if Nick Foles can progress? And I think that you're probably in that situation. Nick Foles is not the perfect quarterback, and I understand that, and I think a lot of people are trying to point that out, that they don't have that feeling with Nick Foles, but honestly, we don't have another option right now that we're going to get that perfect feeling with right away. Johnny Manziel, I can sure as hell tell you, will not give you that feeling. If he ever does in the NFL, it's going to take a while. Marcus Mariota, it would be extremely interesting to see what Chip Kelly could do with them. Again, he recruited them, so obviously he felt like he could run his offense. Had it not been for all the sanctions, he probably would have been running his offense this year, but he's running something very similar at Oregon right now and having extreme success. We'll see ultimately how far they're able to go. But Marcus Mariota, again, if I want to see the Eagles draft anyone, it's Marcus Mariota. But it's just very unrealistic that they're going to be in a position to go ahead and draft him without risking 3 years worth of first-round picks, and I just don't think that's worth it. And then Taj Boyd, who knows? And then Michael Vick is not the perfect quarterback either, as we found out over the last 4 seasons. So you don't have the perfect quarterback option. If you wanted the perfect quarterback option, Peyton Manning was a free agent 2 years ago. You didn't sign him. The perfect quarterback option went out of the door. The final thing, and I mean, Nick Foles could end up being a very good quarterback, and the closest thing you're going to get to a perfect quarterback. That's my point there. The final thing I want to get to is people saying, well, he hasn't beaten any good teams. He's beaten the Bucks, who were a terrible team. I'll give them that, except last time I checked, they had 2 All-Pros in their secondary with Deshaun Goldson, who we've interviewed on this show, great guy, and then Darrelle Revis, who, when he's healthy, he's probably the best defensive player in the entire league. So there's that aspect. There's an aspect to look at that they haven't had a win this season. But you also look at the Giants, who were terrible at the time that he played them, at least. So the first time the Eagles played them when he relieved Vic, he still looked pretty damn good against them. The Raiders had a top 10 defense coming into it, and I don't care if you have the 32nd ranked defense. There are a lot of teams, believe me, I've seen the 32nd ranked defense the last few years. There's a lot of teams, a lot of very good quarterbacks that have played the Eagles and have not thrown for 7 touchdowns. Peyton Manning did not throw for 7 touchdowns when he played the Eagles earlier on in the season. 7 touchdowns to me is 7 touchdowns. When you can do that, I mean, obviously, it'd be more impressive if you're playing an elite team. But the bottom line is you threw 7 touchdowns in an NFL game. I don't see a reason to try and discredit that. And for people to say that Nick Foles has not beaten any teams, I think when we have Michael Vick in the game, we're more realistic about what the rest of the team is, because we've grown accustomed to seeing Michael Vick with this team, so we kind of put them together. So when the Eagles get throttled by the Broncos, it's, well, this just really is not a very good team, and it's not. And I'm not saying that Michael Vick should have gotten any more blame than that, because it was just a piss-poor performance all the way around, all the way down to the coaching staff. But when Nick Foles is in there and has a bad game against the Cowboys, who, I mean, it's still a game they should have won. It's inexcusable how he played, but it's a bad game. If Nick Foles goes against the Broncos, I feel like we would have if the Eagles were playing the Broncos this week, or had they played the Packers if Aaron Rodgers was not injured and they lost, I think people would say, well, look, he got a chance to beat a real team and he didn't do that. When the reality of the situation is the Eagles are just not a very good football team. That's it. I mean, if we're being realistic with ourselves, we know that defensively they've gotten away the last 3 weeks against offenses that have performed very, not that well. I mean, that was terrible wording of that. But Terrell Pryor cannot roll to his left to save his life. If you allow him to roll to his right, you might be in a little trouble. But if you get him to either throw or roll to his left, he's not going to be any factor. That's what Terrell Pryor is. Eli Manning and the Giants have not performed well. Tony Romo and the Cowboys have performed well, but they just did not play very well against the Eagles that day. So, I mean, you got to give Billy Davis a little credit. The defense has made strides. But overall, the offensive line, I think last week is the first time where I've really seen it come to a point where I say, this is the offensive line, we all predicted when we said this could be a not only go from being a rebound offensive line to this could be a real good offensive line that they have here this year. And then I don't know. I mean, Chip Kelly's play calling, I think, has been hit or miss. It was hit last week, and I think he's getting more consistent at the NFL level. My point is, let's give Nick Foles the rest of the season. I don't know if Nick Foles is going to be the answer. My gut feeling on will Nick Foles ever be a Super Bowl quarterback is he probably won't. But he's sure as hell shown some signs. He's shown some resiliency coming back after the concussion, coming back originally this season after not getting named the starting quarterback out of training camp. He's shown that he can be resilient, and quite honestly, I think Nick Foles has earned the chance to be the quarterback for the rest of the season. Let's wait it out, let's ride it out, and let's see what happens with Nick Foles, because he's the only player on this roster currently that has a realistic chance, in my mind, sorry Matt Barkley, of being the team's franchise quarterback. I'm Tim Kelly for Section 215. Follow us on Twitter at Sec215, SEC215. Follow me on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST, KASH Kelly _TRST. Facebook.com / The Real Sports Talk. Section 215 on Facebook. All the good sites. Section 215, obviously. And then YouTube.com / Mr. Kelstar for The Real Sports Talk. I'll catch you guys next time.